Today I'm working on this painting, but I also want to talk about something that's really important. If you're someone who loves to create, whether it's painting, writing, crafting, decorating, or just dreaming up new ideas, I want to have kind of a heart to heart with you. Just as a little background, I was listening to the radio the other day and an interview came on with a young man named Philip Kim. He was the breakdancer from Vancouver who won the gold medal for breakdancing at the Olympics in Paris. And I found it really interesting that the interviewer asked him if he ever had self-doubt. And he said, yes, absolutely, a lot of it. And the interviewer said, yeah, he did too. I thought, well, that's really interesting because the interviewer has been on the radio for a long time. Maybe he was just trying to sort of relate, but he seemed candid. Phil Kim had some interesting things to say about how he dealt with that, which I'll mention a little bit later. But I wanted to say, if you've ever doubted yourself, you felt unworthy of calling yourself an artist or whatever your career path is, or wondered if you're good enough, this video is for you. We're going to talk about something so vital, yet so overlooked. That is, stop doubting yourself and start being your own friend. Because let's face it, doubt can be like this heavy backpack we carry around, weighing us down and keeping us from stepping into the joy and freedom of our creativity. But here's the truth. You were made to be creative. You were made to dream. You were made to express yourself. Those passions inside you, they're not random. They're part of your God-given design. So let's unpack these doubts and replace them with some truth so you can embrace the courage to live as the person you were always meant to be. So number one, let's start by acknowledging the doubt. It's that sneaky little voice, isn't it? It says things like, you're not talented enough. You'll never be as good as whoever. Or why do you even bother? And sometimes it's in first person, which is like, why do I even bother? Who do I think I am to do this? How do I think I will ever succeed at my craft or my art or whatever? It whispers in the quiet moments when you're staring at a blank page or a canvas, making you feel small and inadequate. I've been there. I've had those moments of sitting in front of a blank canvas or a piece of watercolor paper or a sketchbook or any number of things, feeling paralyzed by the fear of not measuring up. What if I go to all this work and nothing good comes of it? It's like the very act of starting feels like a risk too big to take. So here's the thing. Those doubts are not truths. They're just stories that we tell ourselves, fueled by fear, by comparison, and sometimes by unrealistic expectations. It's important to recognize this because when we give those doubts power, they hold us back from stepping into the fullness of who we really are created to be. And the truth is, we were created by a God who doesn't make mistakes. Your creativity, your unique voice, it all matters. Even on the days when you don't believe it, it's still true. Here's a Bible verse I think will speak to you. Number 2. Now let's reframe all of this. Your identity is not rooted in your performance, or how many likes your work gets, or how many subscribers, or even how others perceive you and what you create. Your identity is rooted in how God sees you, and His view of you. It's always loving, always purposeful, and never dependent on whether you think you're good enough. Think about this for a moment. God, the ultimate creator, made you in His image. That means you are creative because He is creative. It's a reflection of Him in you. He designed you with your unique passions and talents on purpose, not by accident. So when you feel drawn to color or texture or storytelling, it's not random. It's part of your design, your calling. You are meant to love the things you love. And that's really important because so often we feel like we're told to, forget that and do this instead. Forget being an artist or whatever, decorating your home or following that career. Just forget that and do something that makes more sense. Well, it might make more sense to the person telling you that, but that doesn't mean anything. It's not silly or unimportant what you really are about. It's part of the way you reflect the Creator's heart. The world doesn't need another somebody else or a mirror image of somebody else. It needs you to show up as your authentic self, your real self, flaws and all, because that's where the beauty is. Isn't it amazing how you're not just playing around? You're participating in a divine act of creation every time you make something. Number 3, now let's talk about being your own friend. This took me years to learn, but it's so important. Imagine for a moment that a dear friend comes to you and says, I'm scared I'm not good enough. I feel like I'll never measure up. What would you say? You wouldn't criticize them or list all the reasons why they should fail. No, you encourage them. You remind them of their strengths and of their value. So, why is it so hard to extend that same kindness to ourselves? Why do we speak to ourselves with words we'd never dream of saying to someone else? That's such a good question, and it's such a good way to frame it and to question those things that pop up into your mind that put you down and discourage you. It's time to stop being our harshest critics and start being our biggest cheerleaders. When God looks at you, He doesn't see a failure. He sees His beloved creation. If He calls you fearfully and wonderfully made, who are we to argue with that? Being your own friend means silencing the inner critic and choosing to believe the truth. You are worthy, you're capable, and deeply loved just as you are. So be kind to yourself, and you think about how you would encourage a friend. Well, do the same for yourself. Number 4. Now let's talk about courage. The more you step out in faith and simply start, the quieter those doubts become. This is so important because that resistance has to give way to your action. It doesn't mean you don't have doubts. It means you feel the fear, but you hear the doubt and you feel it, but you decide to create anyway. You just go ahead anyway. And this has happened to me a lot of times. I remember when I was quite a bit younger and I started one of my first businesses. I remember having to go to a meeting or get something signed or do some contractual thing. I don't even remember what it was. And it was really big for me. And I just decided, I kind of gave myself a little talk. And I decided that I would rather look stupid once than be stupid forever. Because I wasn't willing to not learn what I needed to learn just because I was afraid of it. And I still use that reminder. If I have to tackle something that seems sort of out of reach for me or learn something new that seems difficult, I just say I'd rather be stupid once. If I come across as stupid, that's what I mean, as unknowledgeable or the kind of person who's like amateur or whatever, if I come across that way, or if I'm afraid I come across that way, I just say I'd rather look stupid once than be stupid forever. I want to change. I want to learn. And courage is like a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it gets. So over the years, while I've been in business and I've been a creator, I've been an artist and a writer for decades, I've had to often just push through. And I've found that over the years, it's like I don't really have an issue with that very much anymore, because I've gained confidence in my ability, not just to do things, but to be able to learn to do things. Here's the secret. The more you step out in faith and simply start, the quieter those doubts become. I said that before, but it bears repeating. And here's the good news. You don't have to start big. Start small. Maybe it's doodling in your sketchbook, writing a short poem, or experimenting with colors, either in your decor or in your artwork or in your crafts or whatever. Just try something you've never tried before. Whatever it is, do it for you, not for perfection, not for applause, not for it to sell, but because creating brings you joy and connects you to the one who made you creative in the first place. Number 5, my challenge for you today is this. Pick up your brush, your pen, or whatever tool you love, or your camera, or your briefcase, or whatever, and create something. change something that needs changing, don't overthink it, don't judge it, just let it flow. Create because your heart comes alive. Move in the direction of whatever that desire is for the sheer joy of it. And while you're creating, I want you to speak these truths over yourself. I am loved. I am enough. I was created to create. Let that sink in. I am loved by God, by others. I am enough. You have enough brains, you have enough nerve, you have enough confidence, you have enough support. You were created for what you were meant to create in your life. If this message resonates with you, I'd love to hear from you. Share in the comments one way you're going to be braver this week. Let's encourage each other and remind one another that we're not in this alone. Everybody goes through life. There's always going to be obstacles. There's always going to be resistance. There's always going to be problems, but none of it is insurmountable. Just don't give up. Just keep going. And if you need more reminders of how precious and valuable you are, subscribe and join me here. Together we can keep creating, growing, and walking in the truth of who we are. You are enough and you are so deeply loved. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.